Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. And coming up on today's episode, she didn't just cross over from modeling to acting. She bulldozed her way into Hollywood at a time when that transition almost never worked. From high-fashion runways in London and New York to cult classic television and comedy roles that still get quoted today, she carved out a career that refused to be boxed in. Whether she was playing the dream girl, the comedic wild card, or flipping expectations entirely, she always brought something just a little unpredictable to the screen. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest from Weird Science, actor Vanessa Angel. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, Steve.
Thanks for coming in.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you, too. Tell me about the moment modeling stopped feeling like the destination and started feeling like a launching pad.
That's a really interesting question, actually. I think probably when I got a call from strangely enough, my London model agent. I was already in New York at that point. And she said, "Oh, John Landis wants to meet you for this role in this movie he's doing." And I had done a lot of plays at school, but it wasn't something I was thinking of doing as a career. I was very much tied up in my modeling life. And one of those timing things again. It was literally 3 days before Christmas, and I was going home to see my family for Christmas. And so I went in to meet John Landis. It was literally like December 22nd. And it was for Spies Like Us. And we just had a little conversation. And I really didn't think anything of it because I really didn't have anything to bring to the table. But obviously it was a window dressing kind of role. And then I found out about a month later he wanted to meet me in Washington. He was living in London at the time. That's why all the interiors were shot at Pinewood Studios for Spies Like Us. And so I went to meeting him. I was back in New York and I went to meet him in Washington. And about a week later, I found out that I got the part. And so I was like thrown in the deep end because obviously it was a huge Warner Brothers movie, a huge budget, Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, who were huge at the time. And so I just sort of fell into this world. And I don't think I really realized what it was going to bring.
And what has it brought?
I mean, it changed my whole life. It got me to connect with my creativity. And I mean, there was something about I enjoyed modeling. There was a lot of super creative people in that world too. And it was expressive in a way, but obviously, you don't really speak it, though I had done a few commercials, but there was just something when I got on that first set of Spies Like Us, I just was hooked. I just got the bug.
Did you?
Yes, I really got the bug. We shot in Norway. We shot at Pinewood Studios. So the whole experience was sort of so big that it changed everything. And so, but I realized that I really didn't know what I was doing at all.
That could have happened anywhere.
Yes. And John Landis kindly connected me with a casting director called Bonnie Timmerman. And Bonnie Timmerman set me up with a manager and an acting coach. So I started studying and realized, that this was a whole craft and that you had to, that there were so many layers and levels and things to it. So I was in class for a couple of years and I actually got into the Actors Studio in New York because my teacher, Sandra Lee, they were sort of trying to bring in some younger actors at that time in the late 80s. That's when Frank Casara was the head of Actors Studio. And that like completely stripped me of everything because that was like I'd sort of been in class and, been scene studies. And at the Actors Studio, it was just it just felt more serious. And so I really went even further into the sort of depths of, and I really didn't work at that point. I didn't go out. I was with William Morris, and that was another asset of being on, doing a huge movie right at the gate, that I got to be with William Morris. And they would send me out to meet, huge directors on huge projects, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I mean, that's just the truth. And so I fell on my face a few times and realized that I really needed to hone my craft. And so I really did that very seriously for about 4 years. And then I kind of headed to LA
Bonnie Timmerman is a big name in
Yes.
casting. I've seen her name many times at the end of
Yes.
movies. I'm one of those who sits through the credits.
Yeah, she was really she was probably the most prolific, important casting for one of the at that time. And so the fact that she sort of took me under her wing and she brought me in a few things that she was casting at times. And but yeah, no, I mean, I look back now and I feel like I was just this sort of like, very vulnerable creature that was thrown into a very complex world.
I was just watching a documentary this morning about Marilyn Monroe, and she went to the Actors Studio.
Yes, that's right. Well, the whole Lee Strasberg thing. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
that was what's so weird. I mean, when I was actually discovered in a coffee shop in London with my mother, and, it's just now, like, that I'm this stage in my life, I really feel like, like, why did this happen to me? Like I've really been sort of, and also not to get, too in the weeds, but I look at that part of my life very differently now that some things have been, the veil has been lifted in certain areas. And I realize how closely I brushed up to some really horrendous things. So honestly, this is the first time I've actually really spoken very truthfully, because I think that I had created some kind of narrative in my head where everything was sort of glossed over and, looked through with rose-colored glasses. And now I can look back on that part of my life. It's complex because I feel very grateful for the opportunities, and I got to experience and go down a road that so many people want to, and very difficult to get access to. But at the same time, I realized that there's a lot of trauma in there.
In you or in the business?
With both. Both. I mean, that you can't help but like study acting and get into the weeds of your own emotional life. I mean, because that's really what acting is connected. And so I knew that I had a treasure trove of emotions. And my childhood was, wasn't the easiest. So there was already things, but I didn't really know at that point quite how to access those things to sort of make them work for me in a role. So there's been a lot of reflection lately, and I feel a little bit differently. So it's tricky because I feel, like I said, very grateful for the opportunities, but I also feel like it was a lot for a young girl to go through, and I feel like I paid the price later.
Trauma isn't always a bad thing,
No,
the good can
no.
come from trauma. It gives you more facets.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I can go on a set now, and I mean, a couple of years ago, I played this role of the movie was called The Preacher's Wife. And, it's a Lifetime movie. It was, obviously just, one of those kind of movies. But I had to go into the darkest places, and I could literally do it like that. Whereas prior, I would have to go into my trailer, listen to music, get myself really kind of into that space, and then go out and perform it. Like now, I can just literally kind of like almost be just like joking around with another actor, and then it's like, okay, we're ready, and then I can just sort of like close my eyes, switch it on, and I can go to those places which would take a long time prior.
Can we backtrack just a second? I don't want to go too far ahead before I get to ask you this. You were discovered in a coffee shop, and your mother was with you?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was in a restaurant. It was the school holidays and in London, and I was at a little place called Applebombs. We lived outside of London, the suburbs of London, but like once in a while we would go into London. It was sort of a treat. And so I was sitting in this restaurant with my mom, and these two women came over and said, oh, this was when Brooke Shields was becoming popular. And I was 15 and they were looking for young girls. And she said, you got the right look and, come and see us. And I was on school vacation. So I went to see them, and they sent me to a couple of photographers, and one of them liked me and started working with me, and he was a very, very renowned photographer. So I got to, right out the gate, like do some very sort of high profile things, which was very fortunate. Very fortunate.
What was your mother's reaction at the time?
Well, my dad did check out. They gave me their card, and my dad did check them out, and they happened to be a very reputable agency, so they were sort of okay with it. But in all honesty, Steve, it's like my mom didn't come to one, and I don't mean, my mother's passed away, so I don't mean to speak ill of her, but like she never even came to one appointment with me. I mean, I was doing this all on my own at 15. I was, when I was 16, I was sent to Paris. And as I said, I don't mean this in a braggadocious way, but like I was doing some prestigious magazine shoots, editorial shoots. So you kind of get a book together, a portfolio, and you go on Go Season, you show your book. So, it mattered what you got to show. And so I got to show some really, very prestigious works. And so I was sent to Paris, and my agent in Paris was Jean-Luc Brunel. And I don't know if you know who that is.
It sounds kind of familiar.
Yes.
I should know who it is.
Well, I don't want to get, again, I don't want to say things out of school, but he was one of the co-conspirators in the Epstein files. He was one of the major traffickers. I mean, this was early 80s, so I don't think he was doing that at this point. But my point being that, like, as a young model, you were thrown into so many situations that you shouldn't have been. And I had no real protection around me. And I know my parents, they just assumed the best. They just assumed that.
Which is understandable.
Which is completely understandable. So I don't blame them at all. But the truth was, you do need a certain amount of protection. When you're 15, 16, 17 years old. And then I was already in New York by the time I was 17 and living in New York and by myself.
That was a couple years ago now.
Yes, a couple years ago.
What was your reaction to New York when you got there?
I loved it.
Did you?
Oh my God,
right
Steve,
off the bat.
They say you have these like 5 very cathartic, life-changing moments in your life. That was one of the first ones I had. I knew when you take that taxi drive from Kennedy Airport and you see the skyline of Manhattan, and I can remember it to this day. Like I remember feeling like so excited, like something in my spirit was like, this is where I'm going to be. Because I was intended just to stay for a couple of months and go back, and I hadn't even completed school, so I was going to go and finish school. But there was something inside me that just was, it was like a destiny thing. I mean, that's the only way I can like look at it now. It was just meant to be. And so I loved it. I loved it. I remember my first afternoon there just walking around, just fascinated, because every block just had so much. And I had been familiar with London and Paris. So I'd been to big cities before, but there was just something so magical about New York.
Energy.
The energy, exactly. The energy of the people. It's like, I think any city you can feel the energy of the city. And in the early 80s, New York was just, I mean, it's always buzzing, but it was just so buzzing. And I met with the agents, and they sent me, again, I got so lucky. They sent me to see this very wonderful photographer called Albert Watson, who was huge at the time and working with like the top publications. And that was my first appointment. And it was probably 9:30 in the morning, and the model for the shoot that he had set up that day did not show up.
Timing again. Timing.
I swear, timing. And he's like, just hang around a little bit. Like 10 o'clock came by, 10:30. The model still didn't show up, which was kind of like, well, no, like a lot of the big models back then were sort of wild and crazy. And so my good fortune was because this model didn't show up, so I get to do like 12 pages of Italian Harper's Bazaar, which was a great, which was considered a prestigious publication. And that was my first like day in New York. So it was, again, I think it was just the universe, or, the higher powers were just telling me stay, and this is where you're going to be for a bit.
I remember the first time I went to New York, and I had grown up in Chicago.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's the Empire State Building.
Right?
You know?
Yeah, no, exactly. And everything is so, I'd never been in a place where there were so many super tall buildings. And I just remember like walking blocks, just like looking up constantly. And
Which they tell you don't do.
Which they say you don't do.
Close your mouth.
And when you think about how we navigated New York back then, it's like, you'd have to go to the corner and like call the payphone, and I have to call my booker and find out like, and you'd be carrying a backpack with different like wardrobes in it, so that like in case you had a commercial audition or they wanted to see you, and I don't even know how I did it. Like I really I look back now thinking like I think it's just the resilience of being younger and just having the energy or something.
I think that may have something to do with it.
Yeah. And then I just wasn't really afraid either. I was kind of just fearless, which was so weird. Because now I feel like I'm more, I'm afraid of everything now. But back then I was just like, this is so great and exciting. And I didn't really look at the downside of anything.
What did modeling teach you about confidence?
A lot, actually. The only thing with modeling is that obviously it's completely based on how you look, which you can only control to a certain degree. So I knew that any kind of validation I was getting was based on surface. And that's what I actually really loved about when I started teaching classes and the actor studio, was that I got to really like delve into my emotional life, which I didn't really use as obviously, modeling, you use it a little bit, but it's surface. So I got to really kind of dive into who I really was and get to know who I was. But, when you're doing that at 17, 18, 19, 20, you don't really know yourself fully yet.
Right.
You're still figuring yourself out.
We'll be back for more in a moment. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. You can get our episodes a day before they post anywhere else. You can see what guests will be coming up and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll see what goes on before and after the episode, plus exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. Was there a moment where you realized, I don't want to be just looked at, I want to speak to?
Yes, definitely.
You mentioned earlier, in some cases, you knew you were window dressing.
Yes, obviously the role in Spies Like Us was a very visual role. And, at the time, I get so much, because that was my first role, just from fans and followers, and, that they remember that so well. But I didn't really, it's not like that role really helped my career that much at that point. Like, you know what I mean? It was sort of like after the fact that it started to mean something. And I really did want to, and when I fell on my face a few times, when the agent started sending me out, I just was like, I can't do, I want to really know what I'm doing. And I did get better, and I really worked hard, and I wanted to be taken seriously, and I wanted to be, not just the pretty face, even though I understood that was part of the package, and that was part of the, what I was going to be wanted for. But I wanted to really be good, and I wanted to know what I was doing. And I really think that I got really, but again, you don't really fully learn until you're on the set, And actually my first job in LA was Baywatch. And obviously that's a very like surface looks kind of part, but I learned probably more doing that show than anything, because I was so green, and the crew was so kind to me. I was at that point walking into a scene and looking down at my mark, because I didn't know how to feel the mark yet.
Right.
So those just little, because when you're studying in class, you're doing it on stage, you're doing theater. We used to do theater plays. We didn't, so it's very different when you're acting on screen. and there's all the technical aspects of it that you just don't really get to learn in a class situation.
On Baywatch, did you learn how to run in slow motion?
I've got a couple. I mean, it was only a 3-part thing. It's not. I wasn't a regular, but it actually gave me a lot of confidence because I felt like I started to learn how to bring what I could bring to the table into an actual filmed situation.
Where did you shoot that?
We shot that in San Pedro, in Santa Monica, in Topanga, and and Zuma even. I think we went to Zuma one time. Yeah.
Did it bring you to the realization that you could work in this town?
Yes, I think it actually. I mean, at that point, this was 91. It was only the second season, so it wasn't like as huge as it was once Pamela Anderson came on. But it made me feel like, it made me feel more confident that I can carry a role. You know, even as simple as that role was. Though I played a marine biologist, so she was more than just the like running down the beach. But it wasn't considered like a great gig at that time, you know, and the agents weren't like jumping up and down that you got three episodes of Baywatch, but it did just for you know, like I said, on a private level, it made me really realize that I needed to learn the technical aspect of it, and crews can be great. It was a wonderful crew because they really did help me with like the technical things. So.
Crews can be great.
Yes.
Great support.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
Jim?
They're, I mean, that's what I love about this industry. At the end of the day, it's just that, you know, the cast and crew, we all just come together to try to create this world that, you know, so people can feel and the commitment that it takes, you know, whether you're the grip or the actor or the director, we know it's such a collaboration. That
At what point did you start feeling comfortable?
Oh, gosh. Probably, I don't think until I got Weird Science, because that was a series regular role, and then you're working day in, day out, week in, week out. I mean, we went for 4 years. So I think about the second season of Weird Science, I really started to feel like I knew what I was doing. And I could really have fun. You know, it's like I think that the first few years it was fun overall, but I think I would bring I was nervous. You know, I wanted to be good. I wanted to be perceived as not just this sort of pretty face. So I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. You know, and also that role that I mentioned earlier in Reasonable Doubts, because I got a chance to play, you know, a police officer in a uniform that was not about how she looked. That gave me confidence too, because it made me realize I could really create a character that wasn't just sort of going to be perceived as, you know, window dressing. And I got to work with Marlee Matlin and Mark Harmon on that, and they were, you know, super professional. It was shot at Warner Brothers. You learn a lot from those kind of situations and shows because, you know, they're a well-oiled machine, and it's just you learn how to pacing, and you learn how to, you know, and that was when everything was on film, so you had to sort of do it in like 2 takes at the most,
because they don't want to waste film.
Yeah, they don't want to waste film. So that was another aspect of working in the 90s, is that, you know, most stuff was on film, so you had to just get really good at like honing in on getting it really, really quickly, and just, you know, technically, like for me, like one of the best things I could do was really learn the lines so well that like I wasn't ever grabbing for a line, because I felt that was something, and it's hard in TV when you got a lot of dialogue. I mean, I don't know how the daytime soaps, I mean, they literally have 20 pages a day. I mean, and it's hard to learn that much dialogue.
One of the people we talked to this weekend was Eric Braeden from Young and the
Yes.
Restless. And he was telling us about how there are nights when he gets 60 pages of dialogue.
Wow, 60 pages.
Yeah. I don't know how you do that.
It's great. Well, what I've noticed lately is that, a lot of movies are shot in 10 days now. Movies that would maybe be 3 weeks a few years ago. I mean, obviously the big studio movies are months, but when you're doing like independent movies, there's movies that are shot in 5 days and you're shooting 20 pages a day. I just did a Christmas movie with Eric Roberts, actually. Eric Roberts. And
he sat in that chair once.
Yes,
yeah.
I saw his interview. Yeah, and he, we're literally shooting the entire movie in 4 days. So you got to really get good at delivering. And
how do you do that?
Now I like I said, I read the script many times. I read my role. I try not to go into learning the lines too quickly. I sort of that's the process that I create a character with is much easier and faster now for me. Like like I said, I used to have to sometimes I do use music or certain things that kind of help me get to a certain emotional place, but I've really realized more than ever now that imagination and my imagination got really better during the years doing Weird Science because it was a very fantastical kind of show, and each episode we were in some crazy situation, time traveling and stuff. So you had to, I had to get, and a lot of green screen. So you have to get really good at just imagining the crazy situation you're in and just believing it. So I think that now I probably just step into the fantasy of whatever situation I'm in and just believe it. Almost like when you're a kid and you just, and you're 7 and, you're Batman and you really believe you're Batman and you're flying off the back of the couch and, you really, that kind of childlike commitment to just the belief. Whereas I think, my actor studio days, I used to really just get into the it works for some people, the method approach, or just getting really into just dissecting every line and it depends on obviously what it is. If it's a very in-depth writer like David Mamet or something like that, then obviously you really have to do deep dives on those kind of things. But if it's more of a sort of feel-good movie or something that's a little lighter, I just find that I can just kind of use my imagination and step into the fantasy of it more so than ever.
Thinking back, do you think is the best piece of advice you've gotten?
I remember probably the second or third audition I ever had or meeting I ever had was for this project called The Pickup Artist. And Warren Beatty was the producer. And they actually offered me a role in that movie. But it was one scene, and I'm thinking, my agent, no, you need to be hold out for something better. But Warren Beatty gave me some of the best advice. He said, don't worry about how you look on camera, which I think he knew because I was coming from a modeling background and because Spies Like Us have been so, visual. And he said, don't when you're on just don't pretend the camera's not there, and just don't think about okay, what angle, what just don't go there. And that was probably really good advice at that stage. I mean, now I think I'm probably much more aware of okay, I'm going to look at the person's eye that's closest to the lens. There's little technical things, but I think what it did, it sort of freed me from feeling like I couldn't be silly or look bad or look ridiculous. It kind of freed me up from feeling like I had to be perfect, because I think there was an aspect of me that wanted to be perfect. And that's really, really bad. That's a really, really bad thing for an actor.
Coming from a world of modeling,
Yes. I mean, there is no such thing as perfect. But it was also, also I was neurodivergent. So I think I was trying to overcompensate for feeling like I was going to make mistakes or fall on my face. And so I wanted everything. And that makes you very stiff. And that makes you not like a human being. So I think that was really good advice. And I remember him I just remember his words, like every time I would get like on a set. Okay, don't like be present, be with the actor. Don't worry about what's going on out there and what technical things are going on. Even though you obviously need to learn that stuff, but I think it somehow freed me up to be able to be silly.
This is totally unrelated, and it's going to make me sound really shallow, but I am. Did you remember thinking, boy, is this a good-looking man when you met Warren Beatty?
Yes. Well, I mean, I knew it, he certainly had kind of a reputation, and, I had done Spies Like Us, and, I realized I was, didn't really have that much to offer at that point. But yes, I mean, he was a legend. And so I was very fortunate to meet some of the people I did in the late 80s when I started out, because, I would just be a part of the industry at that time. I mean, I feel like, obviously my probably best days in terms of profile level were in the late 80s and 90s. And it was just a really special time in movie making, I don't know whether maybe it's because we still use film then, or I don't know. I just feel like really, really fortunate to have been in the industry at that time.
I encountered him a couple of times in my career, and I've found him so down to earth and easy to talk to.
Yes.
He hired me to be in a movie he was directing called Love Affair.
Really?
Yeah. It was known as Katharine Hepburn's last film.
Oh my God.
But they needed a newscaster type.
Wow.
At the beginning.
Wow.
And all I had to do was they put the script in the teleprompter where I worked, and they just, rolled on it. And he came to the station and was in the control room. And
wow.
when we were done, he came into the studio and he said, "How do you do that?" I said, "How do I do what?" "Look into the camera and talk." I said, "Well, that's what I do."
Right.
But I just thought, Warren Beatty's asking me something. That's...
Yeah, he's a very intelligent man, obviously, like and just full of stories, but also very gentle and very kind, and just, amazing to me, like just an amazing human being. I mean, I haven't seen him in decades, but just really, like, how can you not have benefited from having advice from Warren Beatty?
Right.
Yeah.
An Oscar winner to boot.
Yeah.
What's something about working on Weird Science that fans of that show would be surprised to hear?
Wow. Well, I think that, probably...
Come on, Vanessa, spill it.
That was a wild time, to be honest. We shot at Universal Studios. So I think one of the most fun part, I would literally go to the commissary in like rollers. Like I had no like vanity left at that point. Like you're working day in, day out on a show. I mean, it was really fun, but you're working to try and get your day. So there's always a sense of pressure and time. And I think probably fans don't realize, like, even if it's a silly, goofy comedy show that like looks kind of, silly, how much work goes into that. So I don't know. I think probably, but actually shooting on a lot at that time where everything was just so busy and alive, that was almost like another aspect of the show that that wasn't filmed, but like it was my experience of being on the Universal lot at that time, and the people that I met just randomly. I remember crossing the road and Rob Tapert was who was the showrunner for Xena. And he actually...
Warrior Princess?
He actually wrote that role for me. Like that, I was the original Xena, believe it or not. But at that point, it was just a 3-part episode of Hercules. And I was doing Weird Science. And but Rob, because he literally met me on the lot and I had read for the original Hercules, he's like, "I want you to do this role of Xena." And they took me out to lunch and they described the role. And I did like 6 weeks of training, broad sword fighting and horse riding and martial arts. And I ended up going home to England for Christmas, and I got so sick. And the show, I had to fly to New Zealand for like the beginning of January. And I got like the worst flu I've ever had in my life, like COVID before COVID, and it was like bird flu in the early 90s. And I could not, I was literally out. And it was like, the industry basically shuts down between Christmas and New Year. So they were in New Zealand already, and they had to desperately find someone to replace me. And Lucy Lawless was in New Zealand, and they had worked with her before. And so she got the part by default. But I really honestly believe that was supposed to be, because she ended up marrying Rob Tappert, and obviously she became a legend doing that part. And I kind of feel like I was supposed to get out of the way for her to be able to do that. And that's one of those weird universe things where I feel like, okay, that was what that was. I was supposed to get sick so that it paved the way for her.
Has there been any experience like that you've had where you felt as though the gods were working in such a way that...
Yes. When I got Kingpin, because I was shooting Weird Science, and, we were shooting 9 months a year. And I had got sent the script for Kingpin, and the timing of it was perfect. Like I was on hiatus. When they were going to be filming, we were on hiatus. So, and it was only because those 3 months happened to be the same 3 months as my hiatus. If that had not happened, I would not be able to do Kingpin, and that became probably the, most well-known movie that I've ever done. So I feel like, yeah, sometimes it's timing, like we started out. Sometimes it's just the timing.
I don't think they use the word hiatus in any other industry.
Right? I know. Right. Like a break.
Working with Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray. Tell me about that. Woody first.
Well, it was quite a long process to get that role, actually. I probably met with the Farrelly brothers 4 times. And then the last time was a reading with Woody. And they had it sort of in this, almost like in a theater. So like the actor went up on stage kind of, and they were sort of in the audience, like a little theater. So it felt already kind of like bigger than just being in some small, office room somewhere. And Woody decided that he didn't want to read with me. He just wanted to watch me. So I had sort of like come in prepped, like thinking I was going to work with him, and to be very prepared to sort of work off of what he was going to give me. Not that I knew what he was going to give me, but like to be very in the moment like that, but with also what I had prepared. And so then I just ended up working with a reader. So it kind of freaked me for a second, because I knew I had to sort of adjust. But I did it with the reader, and it went really well, and he watched and obviously liked it. And about 2 days later, he called me on the phone, and we had a little conversation, and he said, yeah, you're...
He called you?
Yeah. I mean, it was set up, like it was a whole thing. I mean, I remember actually I think he was in Europe or something, and it was like 1 a.m. when flying. I'm like, oh my God, I have to have a call with Woody Harrelson at 1 a.m. And I knew like if that didn't go well, that like it wasn't going to get it. So it was a lot of pressure. But he was great. I mean, he's, I don't know if you know him, but he's one of a kind. He's one of a kind. And it takes a little time to sort of, for him to break the ice with him. But once we got on set, and we had about a week of rehearsal before we started shooting. And Bill Murray, I actually knew 10 years before, because the first actor I ever met was Dan Aykroyd, and they were very close because of Ghostbusters and SNL. And so I was introduced to Bill Murray back in 1986. So I knew Bill a little bit, and so I was he wasn't on board until we were already in Pittsburgh and we were about to start shooting. He sort of came in at the 11th hour. So when he was on board, I was so excited, because I mean, Woody and Randy Quaid and Bill Murray together, I knew I was in good hands.
Or in for trouble.
Or in for trouble, yeah.
In a good way.
In a good way.
We'll be right back. Did comedy come naturally to you?
No, that's a great question, actually. No, not really, because I think when I got the script for Weird Science, I was like, I can't do comedy. I think I told my agent, I can't do comedy. I can't do this kind of like, you know, I mean, it was actually it wasn't a multi-camera show. It wasn't a live. It was shot like, you know, one camera, two cameras. So I was more familiar with that process than I was terrified by the sort of sitcom format. I found that very frightening. But I really wasn't sure if I could do it. And I actually was working with this wonderful actor who's a friend of mine called Jason Begay. I don't know if you know Jason Begay. He's been on that show, Chicago PD, actually, for decades. Wonderful actor. And he was good friends of mine. And so he's like, you can do this, you can do this. And I worked it with him. And he got me to the place where I felt comfortable. And then once I started shooting Weird Science, I'm like, I can do this. And then I got freer and more goofy. And the role really required me being very silly and goofy a lot of the times. So I think that after those 4 years, I really realized that I could do comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then once I was on Kingpin, I think, even though my character wasn't really the sort of funny one, I knew enough to be around comedic actors, sort of how to be in that situation, and you know, whether it's ad lib, because Bill Murray pretty much ad libbed everything in Kingpin, so you didn't really know what you were going to get. And no, I didn't have that many scenes with him, but you don't, you know, you got to be on your toes. But I had more confidence because I had been shooting Weird Science for a couple of years before that, so I was getting honed with my comedic skills.
How did you navigate being seen as the look versus being taken seriously as an actor?
Well, I mean, I think that's probably been my biggest issue, to be honest, because I think that I've spent the last 40 years trying to be taken seriously, and I don't think I probably ever have been, really. And that's okay. It's not for me. You can't make people perceive you. They're going to perceive you the way they are. And
their opinions are their opinions.
Yeah. And so now I feel like it's not for me to change someone's mind, other than like if I'm up for a role and I, you know, want to show someone that I can do something. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I think, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I got like emotional for a second.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I think that there comes a point where you have to sort of let go of how you think it should be or how you think it should look. And so, you know, I'm sort of at a stage now where I feel like I have more to offer than ever, because I really do have 40 years of experience. And at the same time, I still have imposter syndrome and feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, literally after 40 years, that I have anticipatory anxiety, even if it's like a Christmas movie or something that you know that you can do blindfolded. But it's, you know, and I was actually talking to a couple of friends, and they're like, you have imposter syndrome. And that is true.
It's like, a thing.
It's a thing. And, you know, maybe it keeps you on your toes. Maybe it keeps you, you know, always wanting to strive to be better, always wanting to try to, you know, expand and grow. So, yeah, it's been quite the journey, actually.
Draw on that experience and tell me what piece of advice you would give a younger actor or model even.
Wow. Well, I would say, firstly, it's so easy to be molded by other people's opinions or just downright manipulated. And it's very important to hold on to who you are and have a sense of what you want from this and who you are, because it's so easy. I mean, I think probably some of the biggest mistakes I've made now looking back is, and I think as an actor, you get used to sort of almost being of service to this collaboration. And so, you know, it's very easy to listen to agents and managers and lawyers and publicists. And like, I listened to so many other people, especially in my heyday, I listened to so many other people's voices. And sometimes they had wonderful sound advice, and they had a take on it that I wouldn't have thought. But I think it's very easy to lose yourself in all of it. And so I would tell young models and actors to just, trust yourself, trust your intuition. And not that you shouldn't listen to, especially if you're starting out, obviously people are more expert than you. But I think it's very easy to lose sight of you. And especially as an actor, because you are very moldable in a way, especially when you're starting out. You're like a chameleon, and you're trying to fit in, and you're trying to be liked, and you're trying to be good, and it's.
And the internet has no shortage of opinions.
Yes. Now, I don't think I could, if I had started now, I don't think I could do that, because I would have been so, back then, you couldn't promote yourself. You couldn't, it was kind of sheltered in a way. So, there's sort of upside and downside to that. Like, in some ways you were more protected. I don't know if I could take, I've got probably a thicker skin than ever, but I don't know how you can take the barrage of input that the actors get today. It's really brutal.
Tell me about going to, you do Comic-Cons, right?
Yes, I do.
Tell me about that.
They're really fun, mostly because I get to see actors that I know but I haven't seen for a while. So it's almost like a sort of, a reunion of the talent that's there. But it's also great to meet people from places that I probably would normally not go to. I've been to Frankfort, Kentucky, or Lawton, Oklahoma, places that I would never normally go to. So you get to see parts of the country and meet people from those areas, and just the love that you get. Most of the people who are coming to meet you and get your photograph are true fans, and I get so much feedback, especially from Weird Science, that, from men who are now in their early 40s, who were teenagers at that time. And they're like, oh, you got me through my childhood. You helped me through this. And I get that so much. And that actually means so much to me. The fact that something that I did was something positive to someone. Because at the end of the day, we're doing this to communicate. We're doing this to share our humanity. And to know that I have affected someone in some kind of positive way is the greatest part of all of this. It really, truly is. And I get to experience that at Comic-Cons where, you really sense that you meant that your work, some aspect of what you presented, affected them in a positive way. And that's really meaningful.
Would young Vanessa ever have envisioned you where you are today?
No, I'm actually in a very different space today than I ever would have imagined. But, maybe that's, it's weird actually, Steve, because I'm almost like full circle. I remember when I was a girl and about 12, they say when you're that age, what your passions are, what you love is usually what you are meant to do or what you're going to have for your life. And I remember loving nature, animals. I did gymnastics as a sport as a kid, and then I loved acting. And I put on little plays with my sister. I was part of the acting drama club at school, and those are literally the only things that I do now. And I live up in the hills, and I have squirrels and rabbits that live in my yard, and birds and raccoons come every night, and opossums and coyotes even, and deer. So sometimes I'm like, wow, here I am. I'm actually doing what I loved at 12. I'm surrounded by animals, which is, in a city is a remarkable thing. That's what I love about LA, is that, you can be in the hills and you can feel like you're in the country, but you're 7 minutes from Sunset or from Ventura Boulevard. And I'm still acting, and I like to stay fit. And so I'm actually doing the same things I was doing when I was 12. So it's almost kind of feels like full circle.
Aren't you a little tall for gymnastics?
That's exactly why I had to stop. By the time I wanted to be a gymnast and I was really, really good at it. But by the time I was 13, I just shot up and I was way too tall. But prior to that, I was very petite and I was the right physique for it. But I loved it. And I still, do Pilates and enjoy sort of, being physical, hiking and that kind of thing. So
what do you do? What brings you joy? What do you do for fun?
Nature. I love hiking. My life has gotten very, very simple. I was married for 22 years and we split in 2019. So I've really been on my own for the last 5 years.
Do you like that? Or has it been an adjustment?
It's been an adjustment. I mean, I think I needed it. I think I needed to understand who I was at this stage of life. Because, I was in relationships from, 18 years old onwards, and I never really had a long period of time where I was alone. And so I think I had to almost do that in order to really learn who I was. And it's weird doing that in your mid-50s. I mean, I'm going to be 60, but I would, when I first split, I was in my 50s. And so it's tough. It's tough, and I have a 25-year-old daughter, and she was sort of in high school at that time. So it was kind of, it was a painful time, but now I know why I had to go through that. And being alone, I mean, you have no choice but to create a relationship with yourself. And so now I have, and it's changed me completely. It's completely changed me.
Be honest. Do people ever wonder if you and your daughter are sisters?
Yes, we've gotten that actually. She's an athlete, so she's not in the industry at all. And I think that there's a part of her that maybe doesn't really, she doesn't gravitate towards this world, so she's not really sort of impressed by it all. So I think she probably doesn't really want to be associated with that, but it's like I said, it's been a big learning curve the last few years, but I feel really grateful for it because I think I really finally can say I know who I am.
What are you looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? Just continuing with being where my priorities are. Like I want to be like peace and fulfillment are more important to me than anything. And now when I do work, I'm much more concerned about like who I'm working with, the experience of the people I'm working with. I don't even really think about where the project's going, what's going to happen to it. I mean, obviously we're all coming together to try and do the best thing we can with what we have, but I can't control that aspect of it. So now if I just go and have a wonderful experience doing the thing that I'm doing, that's more important to me than, I think, earlier in the career, it's very like you try to be strategic and, if I do that and then that will lead to this and this will lead to that and I can work with, I would love, there's a handful of directors that I would be absolutely honored to work with.
Like?
I would love to work with Judd Apatow because to me, he's a legend, especially in the comedic world. And like Wes Anderson or, Paul Thomas Anderson. Put it out there in the universe. I actually did audition for Rushmore and I got and that's when he was starting out. And I actually got quite close to that. So I had my chance to work with some wonderful directors. And I've worked, all the directors I work with, I love. It's like, it's not that there's a hierarchy. Because again, it's my experience. I just want the experience of working with the people that I'm working with, and it's not about what's it going to do for me. And I think that's where it's changed. I used to be more concerned about like, what's this going to do for me?
What's next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm just grateful to be working and getting the chance to. I mean, I just did a movie with Mickey Rourke and Robert Carradine, and so I get to just, do what I love with interesting, wonderful people. And that's a gift. It's such a gift.
And look what happens when you don't plan, when life just comes your way.
Yeah. I mean, traveling is always something that I've been to 42 different countries, and I'm so grateful for that. That's probably been also one of the great parts of being a model and an actor. I got to travel and go to places that I probably wouldn't normally go to. So,
gee, I didn't know there was 42 different countries.
I know. I mean, I've even been to Iran. I've been all over the world. So, and I think you learn actually more from seeing different cultures and living in. I've shot so many movies in Bulgaria and Romania and modeling stuff all over the world. So, I mean, how can I complain about a life where you get to do that? You know, I mean, I've really been so blessed.
Do you miss your mom?
I do. Yeah. My dad passed away after my first year of Weird Science. So that was really, really rough. Really, really rough. He died when he was 56. So
that's young.
Yeah. So he just sort of saw me, he saw, it was good. He actually came to the set. I mean, my parents lived in England, but on his last trip, actually, they came to the set of Weird Science, and that was a special moment because he actually got to see, and it was literally like three months before he passed away, and he got to see his daughter like do something that she loved, and in a big way. And so that made it a little easier for me.
Do you get back to England very often?
You know, I haven't been. The last time I was there was pre-COVID in 2019. I did a Comic-Con there, actually. But no, I haven't been. I have a sister there and a niece and nephew, but I haven't been to England. I need to go back, actually.
What are you most proud of that has nothing to do with fame?
I think being a kind person. I think that I've been a considerate, kind person throughout my life. And I think I've been good to people. I've been good to people. And I think that ultimately is the best thing that we can be is, I care about other people. And that's a big part of who I am. And I feel like I've affected people in a positive way. Some people may not agree, but I've tried. I've tried to be really loving and caring, and yeah.
Does your daughter ever come to you for advice?
She does. She does. In certain areas, like she's an athlete, so she's and her dad was more into that world, so she tends to ask him about more that sort of stuff to do with her career and athletics. But she asked me, and that's actually one of the best things about this learning curve I've been on the last 5 years is I feel like I have a lot more wisdom. And so I've been able to impart a lot of things to my daughter that I don't think I would have been able to. Even if the situation had stayed the same, I think what I have learned these last 5 years has made me a better mother, even though if you look, from the outside, it would be better if you stayed maybe with, from my daughter's perspective, if I had stayed with her dad. But I think I became a better mother by not being in that situation. So she does ask me actually a lot of personal things and just life stuff.
When you say she's 25?
She just turned 25, yeah. Yeah.
She plays basketball, right?
Yeah, she played at USC. She's actually about to start working as a sports agent.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. So I've tried to impart some advice going down that road, as it can be quite.
You have to measure every word.
Yes, but she loves it. She loves it, and she's going to be in the women's basketball department. So I think she she has a lot to offer, and I think she's going to do really well. But,
well, and women's basketball is exploding right now.
yes. Well, she played at USC with Juju Watkins.
Oh.
Yeah, so Juju was a very close friend of hers. So she got to experience like a March Madness moment, and like she's it's her world. It really is. It's her world.
Thank you for coming in today, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You're amazing. Thank you.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerly. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.